All right, folks, a lot is happening in the political landscape. And of course, we'll be talking about that here on World Politics. We'll see who else joins us and what they've got to say about a number of these political situations and all along those lines. But California officials are asking the court to halt the deployment of the Marines and the National Guard. And of course, the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, has weighed in on this conversation as well. So the California court is asking the court for a restraining order to block the Guard and the Marine deployment in Los Angeles. And Trump's mobilization of troops in LA to cost Americans at least $134 million, according to what Pete Hedges is saying as well. So that is something that folks are talking about as well. So definitely that is a political story that a lot of folks will be paying attention to, and it definitely is being paid attention to here in the United States. So definitely a lot's going on in that, as the U.S. Marines have arrived in L.A. on Trump's order amid immigration protests. So Newsom has asked the court to block Trump's use of military to support the L.A. immigration raids. So definitely that is something that folks are paying attention to, just like they're paying attention to the military parade that is going to be taking place as well. I believe that's this weekend. I believe that Trump will be in this area on later on this evening, if he hasn't already come and left all along those lines. But Newsom says Trump is deranged as thousands more troops are sent to Los Angeles, and Trump brings receipts. He called Newsom amid LA riots, as the California governor claims that there wasn't even a voicemail. And I know there's even been some conversation about possibly, I think one of the Trump administration folks was talking about even having Newsom arrested. So we'll see what goes on in that regards and everything like that. Anti-ICE protests are held coast to coast after LA unrest as the national movement grows. I do know that, like I said, there is a plan to have some protests on the 14th, which is Flag Day, and all along those lines. So, as a matter of fact, there will be some protests here in Durham. I believe Charlotte and Raleigh are on that list as well. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that. And an anti-ICE protest, like I said, does look like they'll be held throughout the country and all in that way. So it'll be interesting to see what goes there. And some people are asking, who is David Horta, the union leader, arrested while protesting in Los Angeles? So definitely that is something that is going on. And Michael Bloomberg has endorsed Andrew Cuomo for mayor. So Bloomberg endorses Cuomo for the New York City mayor office and all along those lines. So definitely that is something that we're seeing, as well as RFK Jr.'s firing of the CDC vaccine panel. And some folks are saying that undermines science and could threaten public health. So RFK Jr. removed all CDC vaccine panel experts, and he did that on yesterday. So definitely looks like that's something that will be talked about as well. And Trump pledges a very big force for June 14th parade protest. So definitely looks like Trump military parade may not get much coverage on CBS, NBC, and ABC. And Trump is warning any potential protesters at his military parade will be met with a very big force. And Pete Hedges, is asserting that Trump can send troops anywhere to protect ICE agents conducting their raids and all along those lines. So like I said, a lot's going on in this space. U.S.-China trade talks continue for a second day in London. So we are seeing that. So some folks are saying that rare earth minerals could give China the upper hand in the U.S. Trade talks and all along that line. And senators grilled the NIH director on a massive budget cuts. So NIH worker denounced Trump's harmful health policies, and senators are pushing back on Trump's proposed $18 billion NIH budget cut. So definitely, like I said, the progressives are holding No King's Day protests across the U.S. to counter Trump and this whole military celebration and all along those lines. And like I said, I do know there's some in North Carolina. There's also rallies planned in Detroit and other parts of the country as well. And Steve Kornacki says the geographic dividing lines are shaping the New Jersey primary. So definitely that's something that's going on as well with those New Jersey primaries. And of course, that's another political hotbed issue. But I'm going to bring in John Cena and we'll see if anybody else joins us. I think that Sasha said he might be coming in later as well. But yeah, lots going on. The Trump team is planning to send thousands of migrants to Guantanamo Bay starting as soon as this week. So we're also hearing that Guantanamo Bay may get thousands of migrants going in that area, and AI chatbots are making LA protest disinformation worse. And all of LA is not a war zone. As a matter of fact, I was looking at a map to somebody that sent on social media, and the part where the protest at was very small compared to the size of the city of Los Angeles. And the things that I saw, it was only a few hundred people that were protesting. It wasn't like this big, massive protest the way that it is sometimes being portrayed. And Smithsonian says it's committed to being free from partisan influence, and that's what they are saying that they want to do. We'll see if that holds true or not. Because amid the Trump standoff, Smithsonian is saying that only secretary can hire and fire. So Smithsonian board to keep institution free from political or partisan influence. So we'll definitely see what goes on in that space, as the Smithsonian has rejected Trump's attempt to fire the National Portrait Gallery director. So he was trying to do that, and apparently so far they are holding fast and everything like that. And in a troubled fashion community, workers found community, then ICE came. So that was something that people were talking about, as well as 4 people were detained in Los Angeles on Friday. And apparently some of them had already been deported to Mexico. So definitely this is becoming a major issue, and the justices are warning Republicans SNAP plans could cost them their majority. So in one of the world's wealthiest countries, more people look like they might be going hungry, and Michigan recipients are fearing food assistance cuts that could cost that state $189 million. So definitely a lot's going on, and all in that space. And Fetterman's back in the news. He's calling the California protests anarchy as he criticizes the Democrats. So he has called out the anarchy in LA, noted that the Democrats forfeited moral high ground by failing to decry violence. So definitely lots going on in that space and along those lines. I've also got, like I said, Sasha with me and everything. So Sasha, what's your take on these protests, or are they actually just like small riots, or is it Antifa that's doing this? What's your take on what's going on in Los Angeles?
To tell the truth, I don't know the details, and depends on your political views. You can criticize Democrats or Republicans or just whoever, whatever. It's a life. It's people do whatever they think is right. So some people believe that they have right to protest, and they're protesting, and there's nothing you can do about that. And some other people believe that they're going too far with these protests, and using the police or National Guard, which is, I don't understand on what grounds National Guard could be used here, because police can handle all that. And so this is really, I really don't understand. This is just probably Trump's political bravado to show that he is a strong man and he can do whatever he wishes. But I don't think that he'll score a lot of points by doing that, really. It's hard to say, but we'll see in next few days.
We'll see in the next few.
Yeah.
We'll see in the next few days and everything like that. I did see that Canada was in the news, and both you and John are there in Canada. But it looks like pressure is rising on Israel as the UK, Canada, and others are imposing sanctions on 2 far right ministers in, I guess, from Israel and everything like that. So y'all follow that story much more than I do. But Britain sanctions Israeli far right ministers over their Gaza comments. So what's going on with this whole notion, and what's taking place with Canada wanting to impose these sanctions on these particular ministers and everything? Like I said, this is news to me, so I just thought I'd bring it up and see what y'all are hearing about it there in your country of Canada.
I kind of heard about it. I don't know too much. I do want to talk about the LA riots.
Please.
I was just wondering what maybe Sasha thinks when what Trump is thinking when he saw the burning of cars, whether he was upset or whether he was thrilled?
Um, in my opinion, Trump is a disruptor, and whatever is going out of ordinary and some kind of a chaos, and that's what he's thriving. That's what he loves, and that put him on the same level with Mr. Putin. Mr. Putin loves all kind of problems that U.S. have. Not that Russia would benefit from it, but they perceive U.S. As an arch enemy. So if whatever is going wrong with arch enemy, somehow it will turn out good for Russia. And that's what they're doing. Now, coming back to Israel, it's interesting that they send Greta Thunberg back to Sweden via Paris, and her seat was next to the toilet. Is that by design, or she was not very lucky? I'm quite curious about that. Any thoughts on that?
Don't have any thoughts. I did see that Greta Thunberg apparently went after Trump, and she said that the world needs a lot more young, angry women. So she's actually over there, and there needs to be more activists and everything. And you're right, Israel did deport her boat that was supposed to be dropping off aid and everything, and there were other activists there as well. But yeah, they deported it after the Gaza-bound ship that she was on was seized. I don't know if they got any of the things that were supposed to be delivered, or if they went to another part of Israel. Who knows in that case and all along those lines. But Rick, you're here, and like I said, I was looking at a map of the protest zone in LA, because we were talking about LA earlier and everything, and it looked like it was a very small part of
LA is LA County, 4,000 square miles. The protest zone, less than 1/10 of 1% of that. Less than 1/100th of 1% of that. The mayor was just on like MSNBC saying, that it was 120 protesters in a city of 3.8 million. And so you don't need to send 2,000 National Guard and 700 Marines. But I mean, anything I say is going to be redundant. Trump is a dick. He's going to keep being a dick. He's at Fort Bragg today talking about how he giving a speech to the graduates, talking about how he stopped LA from going up in flames, and that they're throwing bricks, and that they're breaking up the sidewalk. And then, Fox News helpfully ran some footage of a few looters. But no, it's nothing. These are nothing compared to the riots of 1992, to the riots of 2020 after George Floyd. In 2020, people attacked 156 police cars. This time, we have Waymo, these self-driving cars. They ordered 5 of them, and they showed up, and people burned them. That's 5 cars compared to 156 when we had serious riots in 2020. Trump is full of crap. He's a terrible guy, and I guess we just have to keep saying that.
Yeah, he's doing his thing and everything. What is your notion, and this is for everybody, and you kind of brought it up, Sasha, this notion that folks are thinking that we need more young protesters? I mean, she was specifically saying women protesters is what Greta said and everything like that. Do we need more young people standing up and protesting, or do we need less of them? Because apparently what she said is the world needs a lot more young, angry women.
Is Greta still young? How old is she?
That's a good question. I'm not sure how old Greta is.
She's got to be in her 20s now, right?
Yeah,
she's been around now for quite a while.
She's 22 years. She's 22 years old.
Yeah,
how much money she's generated for her bank account lately?
Well, let's see. Here we go.
I think she's doing quite well.
And she's probably doing quite well. And like I said, she started as a preteen, I want to say, when her first protest came around.
Various sources. Some people say she's got modest income. Some people say she's got $1 million from book royalties, from public speaking. I
thought that she would do better than that. With her fame.
$1 to $2 million, but people are just guessing.
Okay.
All right. So, but with all right, it's very tough to hold protests in the U.S. because the U.S. is such a huge country. So, like France, you can shut down France. France has a tradition, a long tradition of public action and going on strike. The U.S. has 5.5 times as many people as France, and probably 15 times the land area. On this No King's Day, which is the day of Trump's speech in 4 days,
Right.
there are reportedly going to be 1,800 protests across the country. Will it make a difference? I don't know. The million, the Pussy Hat March, the Million Man March, did those make a difference? Not that much.
That'll be the interesting question, whether it makes a difference. Because, like you said, there have been a number of these marches, whether it's the Million Man March, the Million Women Marches that I know that Farrakhan organized, and like you said, the ones with some of the women organizers and things along those lines. And definitely this is Pride Month, and there have been a number of protests among the LGBTQIA community, and whether they actually make a difference, who knows? Maybe in the long run they do, maybe they don't. But I do know that even with Occupy, I was involved with that, and all along those lines, I've said that before, and there might have been some inroads in terms of like some changes in terms of housing and in terms of some things that people were fighting for, but they are still things that people are fighting for to this day. And there might have been what they call minor victories and not the massive victories that folks are looking for. I did have a quick question because it kind of comes to another topic that we talk about on world politics a lot, which is school shootings. And we oftentimes talk about that they don't happen in other countries. But Austria, which is not that big of a country, they had their deadliest mass shooting, and that was earlier today. So at least 10 dead after an Austria school shooting when a gunman opened fire in an Austrian school, killing 9 and throwing that country into shock and everything, because apparently that's not something that usually happens in other parts of the world. And I don't know which one of you gentlemen, I've never been to Austria, have been to Austria, and it's just something that it really has caught them off guard as much as it is being reported, because they said gunshots were heard and students evacuated in videos filmed at a Austrian school earlier today. So
Austria is a nice country. I haven't been there in 50 years. I was there in high school and for half a second. And the pastries are good. They got really good pastries.
Sachertorte, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's fantastic. I've been there a couple of years ago. I was in Salzburg, and this time I wanted to be in Vienna. I just didn't have enough time to visit Vienna, but I will do it next trip. It's a great place. Yeah.
I mean, all of Germany, Austria, or they're, when I hear the accent, my balls pull up into my body. But all the Nazis are dead. You'd have to be 100 years old to have been a Nazi now at this point.
Speaking of Nazis, the
Germans, the Austrians, post World War II, are very embarrassed about what their country did and are,
But there's a country that a lot of people that were Nazis went to and everything, and apparently it's had its leader that was compared to Trump and everything, but apparently he was on the stand today. So Bolsonaro, the ex-president of Brazil, took the stands in the historic Brazil coup trial. So they are saying that maybe they got to redo the election in Brazil, as he has appeared in court on attempted coup charges. So they're saying that maybe he was trying to allege and create a new coup in that area. And I do know that there are some people that even used to compare him to Trump.
Brazil did it right. Bolsonaro did the insurrection thing, and they prosecuted him. The U.S. failed to follow through in a timely manner, and then the clock ran out when Trump got reelected. With Merrick Garland, he turned out to be the wrong choice for Attorney General. There was his deputy Attorney General, Sally Yates, is that right? Would have been much more aggressive. But,
they were exactly 1 year late appointing the special prosecutor. They were exactly 1 year late. If they would have done it a year earlier, they would have done and completed the job. Garland, Trump has to give him all kind of honors because he saved him, really.
So, so Obama and Biden both got played. They wanted to appoint people who looked like fair-minded, cautious people, and frickin' Garland was too cautious, played it too much by the book, proceeded as if he had all the time in the world, and he didn't.
He didn't have all the time in the world. I know that earlier today we had the Russia-Ukraine show, and apparently Zelensky is demanding action from Americans after the latest Russia drone missile attack. So Russia launches one of the world's largest air attacks on Kyiv, and I know we have a reporter that comes to us regularly from Kyiv, and this was actually just reported a few hours ago, so maybe it was around like 3 hours ago, and everything like that. So what is your take, Sasha, on what's going on? Because it looks like attacks are leaving Kyiv choked in smoke, and as a matter of fact, it looks like it hit your home area of Odessa and a maternity hospital over there earlier, like just a few minutes ago, and everything like that. So what is our take on what's going on in this counteroffensive by apparently Russia against Ukraine and everything like that? So what's going on in this space?
Well, Trump decided to deliver Ukraine to Putin, and he's doing everything possible and impossible to accomplish it. And apparently Trump is going against all the rest of the world, against American people, against Senate and the senators and representatives in the House, against all the world. And he can get away with all that. That's incredible. The Republicans, they're so paralyzed with the fear of Trump that he will not allow them to be reelected, and he will put the other candidates and will support them, and they will lose all their seats, and they are hanging on to their $175,000 a year jobs plus free parking at the airport. And this is where America is. I'm so sorry to say.
Cowards, all cowards.
They're all cowards.
Sasha, you've been talking about the Kerch Strait Bridge, which is the only means of Russia resupplying. Russia holds Crimea, and they resupply it through this bridge. And a week ago, Ukraine tried to blow it up, or at least damage it. So you've talked about how essential this bridge is.
Two things. Number one, it's not the only way to resupply their troops. There is a land that Russia grabbed from the Ukraine, and that piece of land is being used to resupply troops in that. Now, the bridge, you cannot demolish this bridge unless you will use nuclear.
Okay.
You can damage it quite seriously, and I believe that's what happened. But to what extent, whether it's or it could be sort of partly used, I really don't know the extent of the damage.
Okay.
Yeah. Was that your dog, Rick? I heard a dog in the background.
Yeah, like my cursor on my, I'd mute myself, but my cursor isn't working, so I had to just hit you guys with barking.
No, that's all right. The dog barking is something that happens every once in a while. That is just one of those things that can happen. By the way, it looks like Britain government, speaking of world politics, is going to spend $19 billion on a new nuclear plant. So what is our thoughts on this? They're saying that Miliband has got his nuclear plans wrong, according to the Telegraph, but it definitely looks like there's going to be this massive investment, and apparently Keir Starmer is having a big decision to back nuclear power in the UK and everything. So any thoughts around this notion of the UK getting an increase in power in the sense of nuclear power?
So if they can make the plants foolproof, idiot-proof, then it's a good idea, because it's the only issues with nuclear plants, besides meltdowns when idiots misrun them or there's a tsunami, is what you do with the waste uranium, and whether you're going to generate too much waste heat eventually. But the world's energy needs are going to double because of AI. AI is going to eat a huge amount of, all the calculation that AI puts in, when it, simulates thinking. That chews up a lot of power. And the only way to make that power is through the nuclear energy.
And that's what I read today, an article about NVIDIA, that NVIDIA is a major benefactor of UK investments. And NVIDIA is planning, that's what Jensen said, to invest as well in AI in Britain, Great Britain. And that's quite interesting development, because companies like NVIDIA, they have to get as far out of United States as possible. They have to become international company, preferably based in Europe. Europe is much business friendlier than the United States, and all the top companies, they have to leave US as soon as possible. Just run. Absolutely. And instead of like Trump is dreaming about this huge investment in the United States, and he thinks that all these high-tech companies will invest in the United States. No, it will be exactly the opposite. All these companies will relocate out of the United States. There is no business for them to be a prey to Trump's whims, and just being saying, Mr. Trump, we love you, you're great. No, it's not gonna happen. Run, baby, run out of the United States as soon as possible. Even to Canada. Canada is a much better place for business than United States. By the way, I've heard the news just before our program. I've heard the news that the trucks between US and Canada is down 38%.
Oh.
Now, passenger traffic, I was at the airport. There is a special section when the flights are departing for the United States. It was empty. There was no people. Nobody was checking in. No passengers. No the workers, whoever have to check in. Nothing. Zero. Eat it.
So the every administration massages job numbers, inflation numbers. They play with the numbers to make them look as good as possible, and that's what's happening now with all the inflation. And so, what you're seeing is on the ground. You're seeing a real loss of commerce. And they can only fake those numbers for so long. But right now,
worse. From bad, it's going to be just worse in next month, next 2 months, next 6 months. You will see numbers. Well, you can massage the numbers, but so much and during a certain period of time, you cannot do it indefinitely.
Yeah, we've been joined by Kelly, and Kelly's been on before, and she's definitely done Democratic consulting and everything like that. So, Kelly, part of what we've been talking about is the whole riots in LA and the Democratic response and everything like that. So, I just wondering your thoughts on what's going on with the Democratic Party and which direction it might be going in, particularly with these protests, because apparently, as Rick was just saying, there's going to be a lot of protests taking place throughout the country on Flag Day and everything like that. So, what is your take on these protests and what Trump is doing at this particular moment?
I think there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes. You've got the economy, you've got the vaccines, you've got the trade challenges, etc. And I think that this is a great distraction from some of those things that are going on elsewhere. So, you get people riled up about the California, with him sending in the troops, etc. I think that this plays to his base. He did not have the support, or his base really is looking to reduce the Latino population with the ISIS and etc. So it plays to his base. It shows that he's being loyal to them. And I think that I think that this is going to take a little while because you've got Dr. Phil going to LA.
Dr. Phil has embedded himself with ICE or with some of the, and he's cheering for the Trump forces.
Wow.
So with him, and we know that Trump loves media exposure, there's an opportunity to make this even longer and give Trump more visibility. So I think it's going to take a minute. I think that while this is going on, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the stocks went up today. The S&P went up, and the S&P and NASDAQ went up. I think NASDAQ was last time was up in like December, and the last time S&P was up was February. So you've got a lot of activity that's going on behind the scenes. I mean, I think that once again, California is a draw because so many other things are going on behind the scenes. Like we don't even know. When I worked in DC, the interesting thing was I worked with a group. I worked for a hotel, and I worked with a group that was there. I think it's the Federation of something, but Federation of Military Families or something like that, but secured families. But the thing is, they when under Biden, they had like maybe 4 people come to DC, knock on the doors of Congress, etc. This year, they had, I think it was maybe 60 people come in. So that means there's going to be a lot of activity with military because these women are there for when their spouses are in active duty, like when they're overseas, etc. They need more support. So they were welcomed with open arms. They had a lot of funding, a lot of support to come there this year. So I think that there's more things that are going on behind the scenes and how we're amping up the military than just this isolated location in California. So
whenever stuff happens like this California stuff or with trans athletes, which are fairly things that don't affect that many people, it's always a distraction from the Republicans picking your pockets. And so all this stuff goes on. And meanwhile, this bill is slowly moving its way through Congress, and it will take money away from the poorest 40% of Americans. That's 135 million people will lose money if this bill passes. And the top 0.1% of Americans, that's 300,000 people compared to 135 million, the richest will get almost $400,000 back on their taxes.
Yeah,
and that kind of plays to what I was saying beforehand. So when you've got things like this bill coming out, if you can take the focus away from going and flying in and advocating on Capitol Hill and reaching your local politician about this particular bill to what's going on in California, it's a win for the Republican Party. And so, like I said, I think that there's so many things that are going on that this could potentially be a huge distraction and wind up being extremely favorable for the Republicans, because if the bills that are going on are going to be a disadvantage for people of lower socioeconomic status, then they're not going to be even paying attention to the bill because they're going to be paying attention to what's in front of them in California.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Politics is two things. It's emotions and intellect. And you can pull people away with an intellectual argument, or you can pull people away with emotions. And California is emotions.
So there are some cities of the world where you go out and you're a tourist and a bunch of kids, like a dozen kids, run at you and they surround you with pieces of cardboard. And while you're going, what the hell is this? They take your wallet because there's just too much stuff to keep track of. And so whenever the Republicans are throwing bullshit at you, it means they are taking money out of your pocket.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Good analogy.
Hey, Kayla, just really quickly along those same lines, I know one of your big issues has been around education also health and things along those lines. So what do you think the administration is doing, if anything, to make us a healthier country or a better country? And are you seeing anything that you are liking that they're doing, because I'm thinking not, but I just wanted to hear your assessment of how we're doing in terms of health and education.
You really want to get me in trouble today, right? That question was designed to get me into trouble. So, since 1999, I've been actually working with regards to autism and autistic-like traits. And so with those two, I think that there are going to be some strides made with regards to the cause of autism and the cure of autism. I think that some of the verbiage that Kennedy is using is a little bit off. I don't know if you guys know this, but I presented to 48 members of the U.S. Rare Disease Committee, U.S. Caucus Rare Disease Committee, the legislators, back in 2023. And I was talking to them about this autistic versus autistic-like traits and putting a treatment plan in place. The key is, I'm not saying that autism is curable, but I'm saying autistic-like traits is curable. So if you can get the distinction between the two, so autistic-like traits, that's something that's caused by trauma. And that's something that's caused, it could be emotional trauma, physical trauma, it could be a medicinal trauma that causes a challenge with the immune system. And as that challenge with the immune system exacerbates, it actually also causes a challenge with the central neurological system. And so as it's working overtime, trying to balance or come back to a homeostasis status, what happens is we see adverse social behaviors that mimic the adverse social behaviors of autism. So I think that Kennedy is going to make some strides with that. I think the interesting thing that a lot of us have not even looked at is that, guess what? His family, Maria Shriver and Elizabeth Kennedy, they were working on an approach to cure autism as well, but through a medicinal means. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be some major strides with regards to mental health. When I listened to the people who were coming into the hotel that I stayed in that I worked at in Virginia, a lot of the voters were single issue voters, and mental health was a key component. And I think that, I think that the Republicans nailed it with regards to mental health. And I think that was an opportunity for us. I don't think we address the elephant in the room as heavily as we could have.
So when I was a little kid back in the 60s, my parents went on a vacation for a week, and they left me with this old babysitter who scared the crap out of me. And when they came back, I was spinning in circles and chanting to God. If the definition of if autism had been a diagnosis back then, that plus a lot of other stuff I did, I would have been diagnosed with autism. But at least in Colorado in the 60s, that diagnosis didn't exist. So when, to a certain extent, it's just increased knowledge. When I was just a weird kid. But now, there are a lot of weird kid behaviors that we look at now and say that is, autism spectrum stuff. So it's not necessarily that we have an epidemic of autism compared to past years. It's that we know what it looks like more. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if I trust like RFK to pin down the cause. It would be, or some of the causes, it would be great if he did. I mean, some of it has to, like autism is, among other things, it's a disorder of integrating all the information in your head. I'm in Hollywood, where people have the opposite of autism. They're really good with people, with schmoozing people. They get social cues really well. And the most charming people in the world, work in Hollywood. That's the opposite, and because they really understand how to relate to other people. So if we could understand autism, that would be great. But I'm not sure I trust everybody.
Yeah, I don't know if I trust Kennedy, like you're saying, anything like that.
So the thing is, Kennedy is not so much Kennedy, it's Harvard and Stanford and all these universities that have been compiling research on autism. He's just grasping what's already out there and compiling it into one form. So with regards to autism, and I want to make sure that I'm being clear about this, with autism and autistic-like traits, there are some very, very different differences. Autistic-like traits, you can automatically tell it's activity or lack of activity or overactivity in the basal ganglia of the brain. So you can take an MRI and tell if somebody has autistic-like traits and the immune system is being challenged and there's neuroinflammation based on what you're seeing in the basal ganglia. If it's not, then that has the opportunity to be something that is autistic. And I know this because when I was pregnant with my youngest son, I had the chickenpox vaccine and I had a Lyme disease. I had a deer tick. And luckily, the deer tick was moved immediately. But when I went there, the medication, when I was in the emergency room, the medication I was taking, the doctor said to me, you could very well have a child with autism. Let's do a sonogram. Now, this is 19, blah, 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 blah. This is 1999. And so at that particular time, I learned about autism. You have five, the brain stems control 5 different areas: fine motor, gross motor, audio, visual, and cognition, right? And if there's neural inflammation that's keeping those brain stems from fully being extended, then that is considered autism. It's that simple. Dr. Joseph Piven at UNC has already shown that you can detect autism via an MRI. So the difference between autism and autistic-like traits is you're born with autism. Autistic-like traits, 2 years old, the kid all of a sudden starts regressing in their skill set. That means that their immune system was not able to handle whatever challenge, whatever virus, infection, flu, chickenpox, whatever it may be. And so because their immune system was not able to handle it, now you're seeing these adverse social behaviors based on a trigger. Autism is 24/7. Autistic-like traits is a trigger.
I haven't heard any of this before, but it all sounds reasonable to me because I feel like autistic-like traits are a problem with processing information, that you have to use your whole brain. I mean, it's why guys are assholes more than women.
You said it, not me.
The corpus callosum is this fiber bundle between the two halves of your brain. And guys, it's skinny. So we have lower impulse control because we're only thinking with half our brain at a time. You know, half our brain decides, hey, we should punch that guy or we should cut that guy off. And the other half of the brain that might slow you down, the signals don't get there, efficiently. And so we do something crazy. With women, you've got a big fat corpus callosum. So you do, I don't know, it's been argued that you do more whole brain thinking.
Yeah, there might be more whole brain thinking.
Is this?
And we move in waves. We don't. So it's not like immediate. Like, so supposedly men need immediate gratification. Like if you do something, I need to tell you thank you immediately. I need to make you feel good. I need to boost your ego, right? I guess I don't do a good job of that. That's why I'm single, right? But then for women, we need you to be in and hear our conversations. When we call you in, we don't need you to solve a problem. We just need you to be present and hear. Men want to resolve. Men want, like I said, accolades on the spot, immediate response. So that ties in with the.
Yeah. Speaking of accolades and all along those lines, and this is a question that comes back to world politics and everything like that. I'm still a little confused. This activity on this weekend, is it a celebration of the Army? And I think Dr. Kelly, you've definitely had some connections with the military and everything. Or is it a celebration of Trump's birthday? Because I'm getting mixed messages. So are we really celebrating his birthday, or are we celebrating the Army? Because I thought it was a celebration of the Army, but I'm getting mixed messages. So what's going on here?
Well, it's the 250th birthday of the U.S. Army. It's also coincidentally, what are the odds, his exact birthday, June 14th.
Yeah, so there might just be one big birthday party for him and everything, according to the way his mindset is. Speaking of ego, so
he's nakedly a guy. He's got, he's not capable of systematic thinking. It's whatever he wants at the moment. It's the last person who talked to him. He thinks like, somebody gives him an idea, somebody makes a point, and he takes that, he goes with it.
But a lot of times we don't look at the background of Trump. right? And where he started off. Do you know what Trump's first business was? What did he do? The very first thing?
I know he got investigated 50 years ago by the FBI for racist rental practices with his dad in an apartment complexes.
So his initial business was a car wash. And so when you think of a car wash, that is it's like a hotel. It's a very responsive, immediate type of position. You have to respond to things at hand to make sure that the business goes well, right? It's very reactionary. It's a very quick response. And a lot of times you have to realize that that is his core. So some of his business decisions will be reactionary. And what can I do immediately for a response? So he has long-term strategic thinkers around him. But once again, he understands the stimuli. You think about it, a car wash, a lot of times a car wash is an impulse decision, Oh my God, I'm driving by, I see all these cars here. Oh, what can I do to get my car washed too? So when you put the frame of reference, when you look at the context of what he prided himself in and built up first, you start to say, well, you know what, maybe some of his approach to business is just immediacy, reactionary, shock, impulse. What can I do to get that customer who's going by my car wash to wash their car at my car wash versus the one up the street?
So surfaces and appearances. He wants things to look classy. Like you've seen all the gold he's plastered up all over the walls of the Oval Office. And his most successful business before being president was licensing his name. So he didn't even, in New York City, there were 17 Trump buildings. He only owned 3 of them. The rest, he licensed his name. He used to have a classy name. People, who would be fooled into thinking that if they moved into a Trump building, everything would be classy and great.
Yeah. Hey, one of the other things that's going on in the world, and I know Sasha and Rick, both of you are of Jewish descent and everything like that, but I just saw earlier today that they are saying that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, and that was from a new Pew study that just came out and everything. So are we going to see a increase in the power of the Islamic community and all along those lines? So I just wanted y'all's take on that, because this just recently came out like earlier today that they're saying that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. And I know that both you, Rick, and you, Sasha, are of a Jewish background.
I've been talking a lot. So Sasha.
I just came yesterday from Barcelona, which I visited several years ago. I don't remember exactly, before COVID, a couple of years before COVID. Today, Barcelona is a very different place what it used to be a few years ago. Even on Rambla, this really touristy place, very interesting, very colorful. There are a lot of Muslim places, restaurants, just name it. And I just noticed that last time when I was there, it was not nearly the same proliferation of Islamic foundations and so on. What's interesting is, though, that I visited also Poland, Latvia, and Czech Republic. It's opposite. There are very few Muslims you can see on the streets, if any. And I didn't notice any Muslim restaurants or any places where they're gathering or any places. Well, maybe I was not everywhere. Maybe there are some places, but at least I haven't seen it. So
I've been having this argument with Lance for 9 years. Lance is Trumpy, conservative. He thinks Muslims, if we don't stop them, will take over the world for evil purposes and they're out reproducing us. So, my kid got married in England. England is 6% Muslim compared to the US, which is 1% Muslim. And England does not have a bad vibe. You walk around, we were all over England. And yeah, okay, so you see people wearing, head coverings. So they're probably Muslim. Are they giving you dirty looks, or they, when they wait on you in a store, everybody's cool. Like, they did a survey. So of the 6% who are Muslim, 94% support British culture and values. So it's a minority. I mean, you've got 1.4 billion Muslims in the world. Yeah, you're going to have some assholes, even large numbers of assholes. Same for Catholics. But the deal, and yet Lance says that Muslims are going to out-reproduce us because they average, I don't know, 4 or 5 kids. And, frickin' Whitey is averaging fewer than 2 kids. But so what? At that rate, to double the number of Muslims in America would still take a century. And meantime, AI, we will have, by the year 2100, there will be 1 trillion AIs in the world. So I keep telling Lance, if you want to worry about something, worry about AI. Don't worry about frickin' Muslims. Most Muslims, they are where they are. They moved to Britain or to the U.S. for the same reason anybody else moves here, to have a family, to make money, to live their lives, not to take down civilization.
Yeah,
Well, it depends on the country. For example, some countries, for example, the same Poland. Poland believes that the Poland is for Poles only. They do not allow immigration of any kind, not just Muslims, but any citizens of other country, with exception of Ukraine, because Ukraine was attacked by Russia and they provided incredible help to Ukrainian people, 3 million plus. They provide them with the apartments, jobs, education, health services, so on. But that's only one exception. All the rest of the people, they cannot settle in Poland because they wanted to. No, Poland is for Poles only. That's a rule of the land, whether you like it or not. Just go to another country. Go to Switzerland, go to United States. United States is not a great example. So go to New Zealand maybe. But forget about going to Poland. That's just as simple as that.
So Poland, where it's situated between Asia and Europe,
No, it's in Europe. Sorry, it's in Europe.
Okay, but it's the highway to. Poland has been invaded. I just pulled up an article, like 20 to 200 times, depending on how you classify an invasion.
Correct. You're absolutely correct, but it's all history. Today, no country cannot touch Poland.
Okay, but Poland, you can understand why Poland might be touchy about foreigners, given its history of being overrun every few years.
Getting overrun and everything like that.
Divided 3 times, Poland was disappearing from the map of the world. There was no such country. 3 times in the history of Poland, there was no country under this name. Okay, so there are all the reasons. What I'm trying to explain, what is today, not 10 years ago, not 100 years ago. I'm telling about you what's happening today. Finish. Poland is for Poles only, with the exception of Ukrainians.
Yeah, with the exception of Ukraine. Hey, Kelly, just really quickly, because we're going to wrap up very shortly. We got another show coming up at 6 o'clock and all along those lines. But I was just wondering, one of the things that the Democrats have been talking about is trying to get some unity and everything like that. So what can the Democratic playlist be like in the next year or two and everything? I know you've done some consulting and everything, because we are seeing a lot of groups that were historically part of the Democratic coalition, whether that was Latinos or whether that was farmers or whether that was unions or whether that was African Americans and a number of others that maybe can get back into the playbook again. So what do you think, as a consultant, the Democratic playbook should be over the next couple of months?
So first of all, I'm one of those people who always wants to admit when they're wrong. And so as we were talking, I started to look and I could not find anything on Trump in the car wash, but I know that was something that was talked about when we were at the hotel, about how he owned or managed car washes initially. So I'm going to take a hold on that, and I could possibly be wrong. And if I'm wrong, once again, like I said, I like to admit it before somebody else does, with regards to the car washes. So, the thing that I was going to say with regards to politics, I think that Trump won with single issues. He really was able to dove into each of those categories and find a way to pull out emotions. And I think that, with the Democratic Party, if they're looking to energize the crowd and bring a multitude of people to the polls, right? Not just one person here or there, but really bring crowds to the poll. They've really got to pull into those emotional issues, and they can't give the emotional issues. They have to ask for what are the emotional issues. So for instance, I'll say, I don't know. Let's just say abortion, right? You have to look and see how many people are for it, how many people are against it, how many people can that pull into the polls versus, let's say, mental health. I think you have to start looking at what's most important to these young adults. And I'm going to tell you something. That's where you want to go. You want to get these 16 to 20-year-olds who are going to tweet, who are going to talk about it in school, who are going to make a big deal when they go home, who are going to once again make your word or make your campaign and make your platform, your issues more pronounced. And we've got to start young up. We've got to really appreciate some of those middle-aged people, because if the middle-aged people don't take the younger people to the polls or don't give the younger people access to certain things. I mean, I know you're 18 and you can drive, but I'm just saying sometimes people go with their parents, etc. But if you don't take care of some of the middle-aged people, you don't have access to the younger people eventually.
So young people vote, they're the least voting demographic. They've got the lowest voting rate. And before Biden dropped out, the two candidates had a combined age of 160 years. How do you pull young people in when they see old a-holes running the country?
Did you see how, for the first time, the Republican Party picked up on the younger voter? They had a higher number of younger voters vote versus
all the
Democrats.
Rogan bros. All the Joe Rogan listeners, the young bros. They got.
I think we have to be careful not to stereotype voters and pigeonhole people. As I go out and I talk to more people left and right, there are people who were traditional Democrats that voted Republican, and they voted for various issues. It was really funny when I was working at the hotel in DC. I saw all these people with "Make America Great" hats on that were African American, and a lot of times you would think that African Americans would vote Democrat. And I was blown away. And what they told me, get ready for this. The reason why they were there, it was like maybe 30 people. I'm quite sure there were more, but I'm just saying there were like 30 people at our hotel. What they told me was that they were going after 40 acres and a mule, and Trump was going to help them get it. And Trump was sending them Christmas cards, and they showed me the Christmas cards and all this personal touch, this hands-on approach to these voters, and it got them riled up, and they were fired up, and they started a coalition in Chicago, and there was this huge group of people that were coming in to support Trump because he reached out to them and he understood what was that thing that they were emotionally charged by. Now, are they getting 40 acres on a mule? They're probably not even getting getting a, what do you call it, a yard. Forget about 40 acres on a mule. But he made that promise to them based on an emotional stance.
So what happened is Obama had good outreach that seemed to move people. And then, I don't know, it seemed like the Dems were really complacent under Biden. I don't know if they were, but their messaging was nowhere near what it was under Obama. And they got out-messaged by Trump.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
do you know what Biden did in their first election? You know what he did? He did what Trump did. So what I didn't tell you is at the hotel, JD Vance's crew members were my account. They were my top account at the hotel. So I heard a lot about what they did. And so one of the things that they did was they put people in marketing, like reporters, people with strong marketing backgrounds, in key positions. So they controlled the messaging 24/7. They were out like They were, I'm not saying Harris and Biden weren't out late, but I mean, they were literally, they would leave at like 4:00 in the morning and come back at like 2:00 in the morning, go to sleep, and then get back up and be out at like 5:30 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. And what they were doing, you didn't see a lot of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, behind the camera, when they were going into, you know, neighborhoods, when they were going to the McDonald's, when they were going to the, you know, whatever it is, where there were Latino voters, right? Where there were Latino voters, because they pretty much assumed that the Black voters were going to vote for Kamala, but they were in there, and they were in there hard. They were in the bodegas, and they were telling me those stories about it. I mean, every single day on that plane, they ate McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, and somebody, I can't remember what else. But, you know, imagine going into these shops and saying, this is my,
So you agree that the Dems need to lean forward and get out there and not.
But get out there strategically. So when I worked on the Beasley campaign, we put a lot of money into people going door to door, right? But if you have the people going door to door talking about their platform, you're still forcing on them what you want, instead of saying, hey, look, you know what? We're here. We want to find out what you want. Let's find out what you want. And then once we find out what you want, and there were focus groups conducted. Once we find out what you want, let's get everybody here together that's on the same exact page. Let's do it via Zoom. Let's do something so that everybody's on one accord, and we see all the people have the same exact issue or same exact concern. Versus, we have everybody from Winston-Salem, and we're gonna have everybody from Winston-Salem get on the phone. Well, or get on the Zoom. Well, everybody from Winston-Salem may not have the same single issue concern. So what you got to do is you got to get those single issue concerned people together and get the emotion stirred up. So now you've got them out there campaigning for you, and you've got them out there getting people excited and galvanizing the crowd. You can't form, you know, coalitions, and you can't get people to the polls based on geographics, because there's too many people within, you know, when we work.
Thank you. I got to say, thank you.
I agree, Kerry, with everything what you said, but you're missing the most important thing. A leadership, a person who is like Trump, with all his flaws and all, he's a con man and he's a criminal and everything else, but he is very talented at creating message, delivering the message, stay by message, being focused, thirsty for a power. That's what you need, and you don't have nobody. And with all your skills, it all comes to a leadership. And unless you will find a leader who has all that, it's gonna flop.
One of the things I said is, you know what? You want your leader to be somebody you want to go to your company, go to your family picnic. So you want somebody that you feel like you can relate to, and you get excited about. You think about, and I say this all the time, Clinton, he had the saxophone. Obama, he sang, he did the basketball game. You know, Trump, Make America Great and all this other kind of silly stuff. You know, they have images that people can relate to. Ronald Reagan, he was good looking. You know, all these things that people can relate to. When you look at Kamala and you look at Hillary, they are authoritative. They can be fearful. They can be threatening. When you've got people out here that are unable to keep their jobs, when you got people that are being arrested left and right, you know, when I was working with the Kamala campaign this last election, you know, I heard and I talked to several people in Durham, and I talked to several people, and they were saying, like, she's not relatable. You know, she may be African American, and I may be African American, but she's not relatable. And so when you've got people who are saying, like, you know, I would vote for her because she's a Democrat, but, you know, she's not relatable, they're going to take one person to the poll, and that's themselves. Right. But when you've got somebody with character and personality, you know, they're like, we're all going to this. We're all going to watch this. Think about a sports game, you know, your sports team. You know, if you're a Jets fan, I'm a Jets fan. If you're a Jets fan, but I kind of don't have any choice because we don't win a lot. But, you know, if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm not necessarily trying to go to the game with a Philadelphia fan and a, you know, Lions fan, etc. I want to go with other Steelers fans because we're going to get excited. We're going to have stuff to talk about. We're going to get energized, etc. And I think the Democrats are missing that. I think the Republicans have hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Oh,
And on that note,
she was very misfortunate to run against Trump.
yeah.
Otherwise, she could win the election, but not against Trump. Anybody else but Trump, she could win, really. She was not bad. But against Trump, it was not enough.
Not going to happen. We'll be talking more about this on World Edition tomorrow and on World Politics on Thursday. So the next time we're back on World Politics, which will be Thursday, 2 days from now and everything. So hopefully you'll join us again, Kelly. So I'll send you the invitations and everything. I know that sometimes during the daytime at the World Edition, you're busy with work, but hopefully you can make another World Politics. We'll see you in the near future, but definitely time to get on out of here and another great conversation.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.